Meeting to order. First time on the agenda is the minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, Kevin.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the integrated pest management policy. Cliff?
Thank you. First, I'd like to introduce a couple people with us. Dave McKenzie is our IPM coordinator, district staff member of the physical plant, and Dr. Mark Schauer from Iowa State University is our one of our consultants with the group. Dr. Schauer has been crawling around the district today.
We have definitely got on hands and knees behind stuff and underneath stuff, and hey, I was down there too.
That's right behind you.
That's true.
So, Mark, why don't you just kind of, if that's okay, give a couple minutes just to kind of paint the picture of IPM and philosophically?
Okay, well, I appreciate being invited to the meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity for Iowa City to ask me to come in and do some things. I've been able to work in the country, been on national teams from Colorado, South Dakota, Missouri, and other places, in Nebraska, working on school IPM issues. So it's not something that's relatively new to me. I've been doing this for 16 years. And to me, IPM is a philosophy that I'm going to try to solve a pest problem. Why is the pest problem first? And once I've solved why is the problem, it usually stops the problem pretty quickly, and doesn't mean that I have to use chemicals of one sort or another, but it means that I want to have all the tools available to solve the problem. And as I've seen in places today, a couple of schools I've been, new district, most of the problems can be solved through sanitation or structural repair. Very one or two isolated situations where product could be used to slow some things down until IPM really kicks in. But there's the difference between integrated pest management and chemical management and pesticide free. Integrated pest management to me is the best of either extremes, only because I'm not closing the door on using a possible tool in this situation. I'm not one to pull the trigger very easily, as Dave could attest, and I'm going around the place to place to place. Very, very few pest problems I saw, and the one problem where they thought was a huge problem was, to me, it's not a huge problem. It's a problem, but it's not a huge problem. And it can be solved fairly quickly, and I'm hoping to be able to, with your permission, to bring in some specialists from outside the state to assist me in going through high school, a junior high, and elementary, and using it to train Dave and possibly some of his staff, and also just to get a better detailed situation of items at each school. Because Dave, as good as he was doing, was taking notes, but I was going pretty fast on some of the things. And so when I bring a team in, I have a photographer that takes pictures of things, I have somebody that takes notes. We have people that look at the sticky trap to see exactly what's on there besides the cockroach or the ant. If there's other animals on there too, we identify those. And so then we end up with a report to the district then of things that are fairly important to take care of, and then moderately important, and things that could be done over time. So it gives a little bit of a hierarchical type approach to managing the pest. Really, one of the solutions to the pest problems here may be your food vendor. Maybe as simple as that. And Dave could investigate that and talk to Allison. And Allison was very willing to work on whatever needed to be done. And I did discuss that it's a continuum from one color to the next color, that as you go towards IPM, you take steps that are incremental steps toward that solving that, getting to the IPM situation. You may be starting where you're at now, but you don't do a quantum leap to IPM because you want the staff to be able to be with you. If you take a baby step with the staff, they're more than likely to accept that baby step. Once they've learned that, then you give them another step, then they accept that. Then by the time you're at IPM, you've taught them a dozen things that they can do to improve the situation, and it's automatic. They go back and see something in the future. We talked about that. We could solve that one right now by doing this. Instead of loading them down to 10 or 15 or 20 things at one meeting and say, okay, now you're responsible for this thing. A little bit at a time. And it doesn't mean that you can't see great progress in a short period of time. It just means you got to be working with your staff instead of forcing your staff to do certain things. So they're different philosophy.
So what you have in front of you today is simply the fifth draft of the policy statement that the task force has been working on. The IPM group basically is an interior group, an exterior subcommittee, an advisory group, and the task force, which brings everyone together. And this document is a combination of policy statements from around the country that Mark has given us references to, plus our own iterations as we've gone through them. The thought is having you take a look at it, and you certainly don't have to do it today. You can look at it. Any questions you could email me or through Kim, questions or changes or modifications you'd like to see in it. We're going to also meet with the Policy and Governance Committee, same kind of thing. Take it back to the task force in April, prepare it with all their changes, because they have an opportunity to look at this draft also, and then get it ready for board's decision, if that's the direction you'd like to go, end of April, early May.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
So, if we don't act on it tonight as a committee, are we going to have to act on it as a committee before it goes to the board?
That's, I don't know the procedures, how you do
I
that.
don't want to drag on forever.
Right.
No, I think
No,
we provide our
we're
input.
just looking at this first draft and getting an introduction. There's no
So that
action
means we'll
requested.
have to act at some other time?
No,
Yeah, well,
the only actions at the board table.
right.
This is
We
just
don't have
pre-work.
to recommend it to the board?
No.
No,
All right, well, that's fine.
and at the last IPM committee, the top paragraph has been added. And the second paragraph, we spent a good part of an hour hammering around on. So we've got a ways to go going through this yet as a committee.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask also a dumb question, because I'm not as an outsider of the process. This is about pests. What about weeds?
Same thing. It's a
Weed
weed
is a
is a
pest.
pest.
Oh, because the
It-
weed
it's-
is considered
it's a
a pest.
pest.
So it's not going to be a separate
Right,
document for weed.
right,
treating.
and it trips everybody up at certain times. It tripped me up at a meeting.
I
When you talk about
is that clear
pesticide,
from-
it's whatever you use to
Control any kind of
to
pest. It could
control
be,
it.
From toothpaste, having sodium fluoride in your toothpaste, all the way up to a herbicide or an insecticide or rodenticide or whatever.
Whether the pest is a dandelion or a cockroach.
Well, again, I didn't have a chance to read as closely as I would like
Yeah,
to.
you could certainly take
Maybe
your time
then
looking
we just
at it.
need to have a definition of some kind that makes it clear that what this covers. It's already in there.
Also,
Well,
Hopefully it's in there.
Okay.
This is, as I tried to paint the picture to the committee, is kind of the why question. The policy to me is, here's why we're doing this. The next step is guidelines. That's, here's what we're going to do. And finally, operating procedures that would be staff-driven and that would say, here's how we're going to do it. So that gets more detailed as we go through.
And there is a IPM link on the district website, isn't there? And if you want to go in there, that has all of
All the
our,
minutes.
I mean, believe me, everything you wanted to know about IPM, but we're afraid to ask is on that, so.
Well, and I know that this committee brought together all kinds of people.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
some of them are here. Do y'all have any reservations from one side or the other about the way it's up, or are you happy with it?
Oh, I think it's coalesced pretty well.
I think everybody, and we've got a very diverse group on very extreme positions,
Yeah.
and we're working, and I think it's working well. I have to admit, at the beginning, I had kind of concerns whether how we were gonna go, but we seem to be going well, and Mark and Ken Yar at UNI has been helping us tremendously, and they're an invaluable resource, and Mark's presentation to the IPM committee was just phenomenal, starting point. And I think when we get to the point of going before the board, we might even ask for a similar presentation, because it was very informative, really got everybody up to speed in a short amount of time.
Is it going to be one of these situations where the policy has consensus, but the devil's in the details, and write the guidelines and the operational?
I think
Sure.
there'll be challenges. There'll be
That'll get
challenges.
debated between now and the end of time, right?
All right.
But
How much
that-
input does the board have to that, or is that just going to be administrative guidelines?
That's administrative, probably more than anything else that they'll work through.
Will this committee be involved in that stuff?
We'll be looking at probably a reconstitution of the IPM committee. This task force is kind of broad-based, but we'll be looking at a committee that will have community input, teacher input, administrative staff input, physical plant input, the IPM coordinator, and Mark has agreed today to continue as our IPM consultant on the committee.
It's basically in here that we're commissioning a committee.
Yeah.
And it'll be growing.
And there's a huge educational component to it that is going to be ongoing.
So I thought the content was excellent. Can I give you 3 small things?
Sure.
IPM at the top, let's call it integrated pest management, just because you're using an acronym right out of the gate. Second paragraph, the last sentence, I think needs some work, but I'll let policy and governance figure that out. And then the precautionary principle wasn't explained, so I don't know if that's a link
Well,
or,
that should be explained.
so just like Chris said, pest wasn't explained, I think if you read that, you wouldn't
Yeah, they
know.
explained that to me a couple times in the meeting, but I understand a definition that would be helpful.
Maybe at the end,
We
there's,
should take a shot at
maybe
it.
at the end, there's a
And
couple definitions.
And like I
Policy
say,
governance committee.
we barely finished the first paragraph, so yeah, it's
No, but I thought the content looked excellent, so I'd be good.
Well, if you have other issues, let me know. We'd be glad to continue to gather the input up until the time the committee looks at all the input and makes the final, that would come back to the board.
It's exciting. I would like to continue to push for the first meeting in May, just to, I know you're getting some good convergence,
Oh, yeah.
but I think that'll just help.
I'm pushing for the end of April, because I'm not here in May, that's why I'm
It's
pushing.
always
for the
good to
end of
push
April.
one meeting ahead,
Yeah.
and then when it,
When is our policy and governance meeting? Will we be talking
April
about this?
4th. Yeah, and then we'll go back to the committee, hopefully on the 11th or the 18th, ready for the board meeting, I believe it's the 26th, something like that, and toward the end of April.
whatever works.
I wonder if somebody could maybe draft a little definition of precautionary principle.
Oh, we'll get that in here,
Yeah, okay.
no problem.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Shower, for coming. Dan? Sounds like a great job, so.
Thank you. You're done.
All right, next item on the agenda is entrances.
I'm looking at these, there's 2 attachments, they look identical, are there?
I think they are, because I just picked that up
Oh,
earlier this morning. I
sometimes.
thought
They are. I'll fix that.
Well, they're both PDFs in the attachment.
they are.
Sometimes that
Same
happens.
kilobytes.
Sometimes when you attach it, doubles you up.
I'm not missing anything, but I just look at one.
I printed them both out before I realized they were the same.
We just wanted to emphasize what we were trying to talk about tonight.
Okay,
Just
so
checking to
say it
see
twice.
if you noticed.
See if anybody was paying attention.
If you hit refresh, there's only one on there now.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Approach this.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. We went through a process, more accurately, Esme went through a process whereby we were able to sit down and determine that our standard for determining the distance between a resident's home and the school would be consistent with the U.S. postal address or the entrance closest to that U.S. postal address that complied with Iowa code. And so we went through the process of all of our buildings, Esme took the time to make a map of all of our sites, put a star where that entrance is. On most of our buildings, it was consistent with what we are currently doing, but there were a couple of changes, and I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk about the process you went through, and also maybe point out some of those changes to this committee that would be the most, would create some of the most difference for us, such as Coralville Central. So go ahead.
So the biggest one for us was Coralville Central. I don't know if you were aware of the big sidewalk path for the off of 7th up on top.
At the back.
Yeah, so with moving that forward to the front, and because it kind of curves in, we just picked the middle of the spot, or the middle of the parking lot. Just to be consistent, there was no north or, you know, east to west. We just kind of said, let's just make it in the middle and go from there.
So that back spot has always been the point of reference?
Well, with our buildings, there's multiple entrances, whether it be for car pickup, you know, for cars, for buses, the sidewalk
walkers,
paths. So we've, at every point, have used different multiple entrances to come in. So at some point, this is a point, but we had that as a
Some at
point
the
as well.
south, yeah.
Yep.
I would like to emphasize that we weren't doing it illegally, because the code provides us, and it says a point on a bus route, and that location where we were dropping off at Coralville Central was on a bus route, and it had access to the campus. And so it wasn't an illegal place for us to be doing this, but it wasn't necessarily consistent with how we were managing the rest of our buildings. And so we wanted, for consistency purposes, to true that up, and so we actually made that change.
Yeah,
Well, I'd call
I interpret it
simplicity.
the same way as you do, that there's some discretion as to where that point goes.
There's some discretion.
But it wasn't an intuitively point that made sense to people. This seems much better.
Correct.
I'm wondering one thing, and the same thing with Penn. I think I know the answer, but so by moving this star here, that means more people will now qualify for the bus.
Correct.
Does it mean we're cutting off people anywhere else because now they're too close? I don't think with Penn it does.
No.
There's
Penn-
nobody on that side.
Right, not on this side, no. So what it was is it brought a couple of families borderline back in
Yeah.
from this way. So we've notified them of, okay, you will continue with busing already.
And we've
So they've
already
been-
made that contact with
Yeah.
those parents.
They've been notified
But
already.
nobody additional now is cut off because of the movement of these stars.
No.
Oh, that's great.
Shouldn't be, yeah.
Now, is there any GPS position for these? Just out of curiosity.
There would be.
I mean, is it the type?
It could be geocoded at that point
Okay.
if that's something we wanted to do.
Well, I don't know that we have to, but I was just curious if that was, you know, something that if we get someone who wants to get real particular and we say, well, we can give them the coordinates.
Yeah, the latitude and longitude.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
that point can be geocoded. We haven't taken that step, but,
Okay.
you know, the answer to your question is yes, it can.
Other
We
changes?
changed Van Allen. You might have noticed that Van Allen is out on Front Street. Why is that? Well, to be consistent with law, Abigail is actually a private drive. It's our street. And so in order for us to actually comply with the law in the postal address, we had to put the point at that location because the law says on a public highway, okay? Or public
Before we
road.
have it on Advocate?
Huh?
Did before we have it on Advocate?
Yes.
So that more people are going to be cut off.
No, that didn't.
Not really, because
Not really.
there aren't that many people east, so
Okay.
the point shifts
They're
west.
asking the other way around.
Right,
Yeah.
so that didn't affect any of our families by moving that. Horn
Do
was
you happen to
another.
know that distance?
No,
If you don't, it's fine.
I
Just
don't
wondered.
know the answer to that
Okay.
question.
Horn and Kirkwood were the other two.
Horn and Kirkwood. Horn, we moved from the back side of the building to the front side of the building to be consistent with the postal address. That wasn't a huge change and it didn't affect any of our families,
No,
correct?
it did not.
Okay. And then Kirkwood, again, private drive. as we go into that campus. And so that's why the star's not down by the building. It's up a little ways. But again, I don't believe that affected any of our families.
Nobody gets busted. Yeah.
Right, right. Those were the changes.
Didn't Penn also move?
Penn did move.
But in a way that would make anything qualify more people for the
Penn
bus.
move, but we've already contacted those parents that now have busing that didn't qualify for busing before, and I haven't heard back from them. Maybe you did, but no, I didn't hear back from them.
So it only helped people.
Right. So hopefully now, when we approach this issue, we'll have one point. We'll have established it in a consistent manner with all of our campus, and we won't be moving the point. So hopefully that will provide our patrons with the consistency of application that they're looking for within the mapping program. So that's really about all I wanted to tell you, that work has been done, and I think we completed it pretty successfully.
I like it. Simple.
Thank you.
Okay?
And then this is going to be available then for people to go
Look at
on the
link of
website
the
or
bus.
something and
Put it under
Fees.
transportation.
We can put it under.
Transportation.
We can put these maps on our website. There's no problem with that
Yeah.
at all. Would you do that?
The transportation.
Okay.
Yep.
Done.
So did this not go to any appeals then? You must have. Yeah, or maybe not.
I'm
You
sorry, I didn't hear the question.
appeals.
Did this eliminate any appeals?
It did. It eliminated 5 appeals, and those 5 families were notified back to say, you, now with the entry point move, you will now receive busing. Some of them still did not qualify.
And we
They were notified the
communicated
second
that,
time. Correct.
So when we talk-
change to those
When
parents.
we talk appeals next time, those 5 would be gone because they're
Yep.
resolved.
Gone.
It'd just be the remaining ones.
Correct.
Okay. Good. Love it.
We're
Good
good?
process.
All right. Thank you, Esme.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Esme. All right, appendix, is there anything we want to pull up? No, just keep rolling.
Yeah, you want to take it or you want to end it?
Appendix 9.
We just changed one word for the second paragraph. Actually, that paragraph, the second paragraph's been relocated from the end of the document to there. And that facility's been changed to new building projects.
And we talked about that at our last meeting, and we kind of had a consensus that that was acceptable, and so it's a very small adjustment to the policy, but I think it's a very doable thing for us to manage.
So we could just take that straight to the board then? Are you guys,
Yes.
we're basically recommending no change except that one,
Yeah.
which is really just aligning with our practice,
Yeah.
right?
That's what we've been doing.
I don't know, appendix 9's been working well, so if it ain't broke,
It's not broke.
why fix it? right?
Yeah, I
So-
mean, other than new board members have to get used to the idea that they approve it 10 times.
Yeah, well, that's the way we set it up though. It's perfectly designed for the results it's delivering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been working.
it's good accountability.
Anything else on that one then? I'm just gonna note we'll need to get that onto a board agenda at some
Right.
point. Guess we can decide, Steve, when. I mean, this is probably a simple one, but,
Nothing more from us.
all right, design/service review?
And if you don't mind, I'd like to do item 2 first.
Sure.
Because 1 and 3 are related. We had discussion at at least the last operations, and maybe the one before, but Director Hemingway and I and Craig have met with union officials, and I proposed kind of merging the documents within the legal confinements of the state law. And basically, what you have in front of you is the original document that was presented to us, and then what I've done is rewritten the merged document. Next, there's 3 documents that were merged. One was the taxpayer assurance document, the current instruction to bidders that we used in the district, and then recommended changes that I had made on the last document. So it's in draft form, but this isn't any different than what you saw last time. I just want to be able to use this in our documents going forward. And as a matter of fact, we did include much of this in the Weber lookers. I got them in before they went out to
Fantastic.
bid. So
thank you.
you'd asked me to do that, and we were able to get that
I
in.
appreciate
So,
that.
And that's the 14-page document you're talking
yes, yeah. It's basically it's instruction to bidders, but it asks for all the pre-qualification information that we thought was relevant and legal. Plus, it explains to bidders how they have to go about getting bonding and insurance and all that. Okay, it's pretty detailed, much more than we started with.
Now, is our insurance amount still $1 million?
I'll double check, but it might be 2.
Okay, well, you know, I carry $1 million on my
Yeah.
record. And I really think that, you know, 5 isn't out of the ordinary, or even if we have maybe a tiered, if it's a small program, if it's a small project, there's no need to carry $5 million, but, you know, $1 million in today's world is really nothing.
I'll double check that, Phil, but
Okay.
a lot of the liability too is assumed with the performance bond, and the bonding that goes forward
Okay.
is like an insurance policy basically. But there are liabilities that the contractors have that they have to back to be prepared for, so I'll double check that.
Okay.
I'm really more concerned about the contractor's ability to maintain worker compensation and things like that.
Okay.
And we maintain all of those levels in there. But I'm not coming up with the exact amount right now. We'll check that
Yeah.
out.
Okay. And do we ask for their EMR, their experience modifier?
I think that's part of the bonding process.
Okay. But is it something we could ask for?
I'm sure whoever carries their workman's comp is gonna ask them what their rating, they know what their rating is.
It's part of their rating.
Yeah.
It's part of the process, but we don't specifically ask for it as a part of our documentation, except through those other
Okay.
methods.
Do you think
To
they would have
answer your
any
question.
benefit to know that? Or?
Well, I'll just throw that question back to you, but what benefit do you see accruing to the school district by having that number?
Well, you get kind of maybe a unofficial safety rating. You kind of see that, you know, if they don't have a lot of claims against them, that type of a thing, maybe they're doing things right there that way. I guess that's how I look at it.
I would add that maybe it gives you some predictability of how they perform on past projects and may perform in the future.
Mhm.
But some of them are in hazardous trades, you know, the steel
Well,
workers
no.
and roofers are gonna have higher ratings.
I understand.
Drywall.
I understand that, but if you have one where they're constantly falling off the roof, you may not want to have.
And I think that was, when we first started talking about that, might have been directed at subs in the original document, but we're dealing with general contractors, and they have their subcontracts. We don't necessarily deal directly with all those subs, we're just dealing directly with the general. So
Okay.
after they go through the bonding process, believe me, they've been thoroughly vetted to get that bond at that rate. I've been through it, I can tell you, it's not an easy process.
And on the OSHA training, do we have it where they specify if they went like 10 hours or 30 hours, anything like that, or?
There is safety programs mentioned in the specifications. I'll have to get it for you, but I can't recite it off the top of my head.
And
I don't remember.
do we,
There's issues about safety.
and a bid qualification, once we get, you know, someone that is, we're looking toward this person as a successful bidder, do we do any type of like a post-bid interview or a bid qualification where we go through the?
This is how we deal with it. This document does require that they now provide us with a list of all their subcontractors and vendors that do over 5% of the volume of work.
Fantastic. And is this at the, when they're giving us the bid or within 2 or 3 days
Within
afterwards?
24 hours
Okay.
of being the low bid, we notify them that they need to provide that list. So first of all, I assume that if they were bid, the general's bid, we were okay with them, because if we weren't, we would have previously disqualified. But then what I do is I go through the subcontractor list to make sure that there's not an individual sub that had an issue with the district. Okay? And if there is, we can require or request the contractor to switch to a different subcontractor. So that provision allows us, it's in there, we can do that. So that's how we use that list. It's 24 hours after the low bid is submitted. You know, then they gladly put all that together. Otherwise, it's just busy work. Okay?
Looks awesome.
Yeah, I think this is more the way I've managed projects in the past, and I really feel very comfortable with this, and I appreciate the input. Phil.
It's an improved
Yeah.
joint effort.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
So I hope you're happy with it. 'cause-
No, I am. No, I think this, I agree, I think this is a tremendous step forward
Okay.
and everything that was, so. And I'm assuming it's something that, you know, if maybe we have a biannual or annual review, see if there's even ways to tighten it up or something we see that, you know, might be helpful that way as well.
I hate to commit myself to more work, but my next big project actually is to put together what I call a project management manual. And how, you know, what steps are taken to manage construction projects and why certain things are required. And so I've worked on it for years, and I'm just now kind of pulling it together. And I think when you get that, you'll see how we manage projects.
I mean, there's a 3-year rotation of policies, right?
There is.
So I don't know if this is something you want to just, I don't know if it's our work or your work, but
I'd love to bring when I get it done, so it may take a while.
whatever works to get it on, like say, a 2 or 3-year rotation.
Well, yeah, I'm, like I say, I'm very, very happy with what we've accomplished, and, but it's the type of thing that I think, looking at it from time to time, which I'm sure will be beneficial as well.
All right, what's
Okay,
next?
items 1 and 3 actually are the same. They were just kind of split up on here. I didn't catch my assistant before she did it, but that's neither here nor there. The question was, how do we select architects? So what I've done was, first of all, if you look, they're attached. I attached the original RFP that we did back in March of 2013, okay? And that was how we went out and solicited all the contractors and engineers. We pre-qualified them all, we checked them all out, we checked their references, we checked their finances, we did all that, okay? And we determined which ones had school design qualifications. So we came up with a pool, and you also have that attached, is the architectural firms and all the design and engineering firms, and testing firms, and commissioning firms that we have pre-qualified. And we have added a few of these since 2013, because last spring and the spring before we opened it up. So over the last couple of years, we've added, I don't know, 6, 7 people to this list. So there's an updated list for you to look at. Every one of these firms has done schoolwork in the past. And why is that important? Well, there are a lot of architects out there that would do the work if you asked them to, but are really not into giving them the education. I don't have the time to give them the experience to use this as guinea pigs. So these are people that are qualified to do the work. And then a third piece is, and there's another letter going out, it's this item right here. And it's the request for proposals. This is what we sent out for the Weber and Lucas projects, and we sent out for the high school project. And I've got a draft ready to go out at the end of the week for West High School and Longfellow. Okay? So this is the information that we're asking for from all the firms that are in the pool that want to give us a quote for a particular project. Okay? So that's what this request for proposals is to get down to the nitty-gritty per project, and I try and identify the highlights of each project, you know, what's in the scope, what's the budget, those type of things, okay? Then, if there's a large spreadsheet that you have attached there too, and it looks like this, and this spreadsheet basically is the matrix that we use for Weber and Lucas, but we also used it for the high school. And on this spreadsheet, you will find, you know, who the in-charge principal is, who the manager for the project is going to be, you know, their educational programmer, which is important to understand how school education programs work, all the mechanical and design and structural engineers, and then all the relevant projects. And you'll notice that some of these cells are highlighted. Those cells that are highlighted are projects or individuals that I personally have knowledge of or have had experience with. A lot of these projects I've been involved with here and other places. Most of these engineers and architects I've had experience with. So when they list them, I highlighted the ones that I personally know and have direct knowledge of. And then if you get down into the references, same thing at the bottom of the page. You'll notice some of those are highlighted, again, because those projects that are listed are superintendents or whoever I have direct knowledge of, okay? And then I call it yellow and blue for lack of a better word, maybe it's pink. Those are their actual fee proposals, and they're reimbursable proposals. And we, before I tell you the next part, just as a matter of policy, I never have two design firms on the same track. In other words, if you're starting Weber and Lucas at the same time, you don't want one firm doing both projects because they have an issue with priorities. You know, which one do you want done first? I don't like going there, so I actually would select two firms. So if they're on the same track, we don't have a priority issue with the design firm. So the first area there was on Weber, and the low fee for Weber was basically determined by Lucas, because Lucas, Newman Monson, for example, was low at 7.36%. And so we awarded that, based on their proposal, and based on the fact that they had designed the other addition that was done at Lucas. We felt Newman Monson was the best firm for that project. So that eliminated them from consideration of Weber. Then we went through Weber and we awarded it to BLDD, and you could find one or two other ones that were lower. Newman Monson for one, but they were eliminated. FEH was there, but the FEH proposal was not as well defined as BLDD. If you look above the top part of the second page, you'll see letter of interest, yes, but then you'll see the 3 1s for BLDD, and you'll see 2 2s and a 3 for FEH. That was just based on the content of their proposal. So we deferred to the next low, which was BLDD. That's how we came up with, we thought, the best firms. Some firms are better suited for renovations. Some are better suited for new and additions, and we take that into consideration when we look at it. So David Duty and I did this together. I mean, I built the matrix, but then he helped me go through and made sure that our evaluation was proper. So that's how we did it. That's how I'd like to continue to do it, because you just can't take the bottom dollar. If you do, you're asking for trouble. So I think we go through it. We put these architects and engineers through a lot of hoops and they jump a lot of hurdles, but it gives me a sense that when we pick the firm to do the project, we get the right one. Fortunately, so far we've had some pretty good outcomes with our design firms. So that's how we go through it. And I could have tried to write all that, but I would have wrote 20 pages. So and these are the documents we use.
And I appreciate you putting the individuals in there, because you know, just because we get Shive Hattery doesn't mean we get the best person in the Shive Hattery group.
Yeah.
And we're only as good as the person that is
That's very
actually
true.
working
Yep.
on our project.
Yeah.
True.
And I think that, you know, that's very helpful to have it in there, and I hope you have a, you know, I'm assuming this is your cheat sheet. So, and I don't know how much leverage we have. If, you know, Shive Hattery says, well, we want to put this person on it, and we can say, well, we'd rather have this individual. Is that something that we have that leverage, or we don't? That's just a question.
Well, I think professionally we expect them to honor who they said they would use.
Okay.
Now, I will share one example with you. It's a well-known national company. They did a project for me back in the year 2000. And they switched their leads immediately after getting the contract. We did not get the person we wanted. It's been, 16 years, and I haven't used them since.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Well,
you remember things like that, Phil. It's tough to contractually say it's this person, because that person might be the firm.
sure.
You know, but most firms are pretty good about honoring their commitments as to who the lead person is. And that is part of the decision-making processes. There are some strong people and weak people in every one.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, and I appreciate you providing the list of everything. And I guess, again, I'll say there's a lot of Des Moines firms in there, but I guess the ones that you have experience with. And I think we have some you know, we've got local firms in there as well.
There's Waterloo, there's Cedar Rapids, there's Davenport.
There's a representation.
And frankly, there's probably no more than 15 firms in the state, architectural firms, that truly have good school experience. And most of them are on that list.
All right, anything else on this one? Pick it up a little bit, rapid fire through.
Okay.
Support staff?
Here, next. Cost per student, is that you?
No, that's Steve.
Yep. You want it up there, or just want to walk through it?
I think you just,
All right. So you got a few documents in there, and actually one of them is now out of date because we got a new one in. And that's the first one on there, which is the Iowa School District cost per student. We've had some consolidations of districts in there. So the new one that's out, which we can get to you, actually moved down the ranking, which I would argue is probably not necessarily a good thing for us as a district. We're now 333rd out of 338 districts, which means we're very efficient in our admin cost per pupil. But I would argue that we're suffering in quality and quantity of work that we're able to do given that. So you can see that that chart gives you per student both costs and rankings. So you've got the general fund, the administration, instruction, support staff, operations, and transportation, and got some operational definitions down below. You see how we stack up with the other UEN districts above and below us in size. Obviously, green is good, which means you're more efficient with your dollars, and red means bad, you're less efficient with your dollars. From that perspective. One area that always stands out for us is support staff. And for us, if you look at the note down below there, and you keep in mind who that includes, we've got a tradition in the district of providing support in those areas, perhaps at a level that's significantly higher than you might find in other districts. And again, that's attendance, social workers, guidance, health, instructional improvement, library, and media. And in particular, we've been a leader in library and media, and so that's one of the things that you see in our district, and you see the high red there for us being 35th in the state for support staff. So that's the first document that you have, and again, they just released the newest one yesterday, so we did not get a chance to get that up. The next document you have out there is the Urban Ed Network, and that again looks at all of the Urban Ed districts and does a position by position and then a function by function analysis to give you an idea of how many folks they have providing support in each one of those areas. You see it's a little clearer up top when you do it by position title, a little less clear down at the bottom when you try to organize their or analyze their organization charts to see what types of functions these folks have based on title. But it gives you some idea about the frequency with which those positions show up. And then the last piece there is specifically related to the Human Resources and Business Office, and that was an analysis done as part of the UEN and the IASBO as they look at those numbers, and you see we're way over on the right-hand side there. That gives you a student-staff ratio in terms of how many pupils you have per position in those two departments in the district. So that was information that was requested. You have that in front of you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
So we're very efficient.
We're very efficient.
Wait till you see the new numbers. We're green across the board.
Really? So is the new numbers this year or is it last year?
15.
Yeah,
So it's last year. Okay.
so it's in arrears.
It's about a year behind, but it's the best they can do, apparently.
No, I know, you're right. That's interesting. I'm interested to see them all, but we'll see that in the next quarterly update, right?
Yeah, we'll get that out to you.
We'll get it on the quarterly report.
All right, any questions on that one? All right, Mid-American?
Okay, the next one is, there's two spreadsheets that were actually provided by Mid-American. I didn't have any input to it, but, and Marcus apologized, he had a conflict. He was planning on a later meeting date or time, but the first sheet basically is it's the kilowatts per hour assigned to each building. Okay, and so they just took our total expenditures and converted to kilowatts per cents per kilowatt. You'll see the very bottom of the page, the lowest on the page is 628, which is West High, and the highest on the page is also West High at 959, right next to it. But one is the old wing and one is the new geothermal ninth grade center. So that's the difference. Okay, so there's two different numbers there, but they're kind of interesting numbers. I think the bottom line here, we average $7.20 per kilowatt hour in the district. I think you and I, as individual homeowners, probably play closer to 14. I mean, when you add all the tariffs and everything that goes into that, so it's pretty significant, the break that Mid-American Energy gives us, and Alliant does too. And that's the purpose of the spreadsheet. And the second part, he was starting to show how many dollars the districts receive from incentive programs, which you're all been tuned into recently. We had $400,000 in rate rates, so I don't think all that was even reflected reflected on here yet, so that's what he was trying to do with those two spreadsheets. I think that's what we were asked to do, is just show you what.
We just wanted to make sure that you were aware that this is a partnership that we truly value. We go into every project. We do a life cycle analysis. Mid-American Energy actually pays for the Whites Group to come in and do various levels of efficiency for our buildings. We choose a package that goes into the design. Typically, we use a 6-year payback or in that ballpark in order to incorporate a feature into a building project, and we've just been able to really benefit from that type of utility partnership. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as Operation Committee, just knowing that we're trying to do our due diligence in partnering and saving money. Or we can.
Great.
Yep. Just a report.
All right, life cycle. Playground?
Okay, Ben Grimm's here, our grounds manager, who's done an excellent job in a lot of areas, but one of his expertise is playgrounds, and we've gotten a couple of our guys certified to be inspectors, and we're really getting on top of playgrounds, much in the same way we've gotten on top of grounds. But so we went out and they've looked at every piece. There's 200 some pieces of equipment, and they've gone out there and looked at all that and rated it and looked at their life cycles right from the manufacturers, and then we put them into categories, much like we did the vehicles, A through K or M, whatever it was, so that we have a predictability of what we need to replace in playgrounds on a yearly basis for Pebble. So this gives us that predictability, and also it will help us in the end develop some equity in the district to be able to help out buildings and projects that have less resources, a Wood versus a Wickham, for example. So I think this will help us generate some more equitable playgrounds in the district. We're setting aside part of our playground replacement funds specifically for this. So I think that'll help as well. And we've identified pieces, and I think it's a pretty good start to a playground replacement cycle. And then we got into a policy, and Craig, you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, the principals that I've shared this with are pretty ecstatic about it. We've kind of used a hit or miss approach in the past. We've probably hung on to some equipment a little bit too long. We've had a lot of inequities because there's some parent groups that are able to raise a lot more funds than others. The district never had a lot of skin in the game when it comes to the playground. They kind of turned that over to the parent groups. I feel in particular that's a bad policy on the part of our district. We need to step up and provide a certain level of play equipment. It's both educationally and physically a part of what we're trying to do with our children, right? In developmental awareness and improvement of our children. And so when I was talking to Dwayne about this, they really took this on. Ben and his team, they spent a lot of hours analyzing what we have out there. We were able to fit all these pieces into a life cycle replacement. And just so happens that we have about 3 buildings right now that are in major initiatives for play equipment. And talked to a couple of those principals, and they were just ecstatic, but they were also disappointed that I wouldn't let them let out the secret yet. That we were moving in this direction because I needed to run it by this committee first. And so we're just trying to seek your feedback on whether or not this is a direction you would like us to go and how we want to set this up. I feel it's the right thing to do. We put together a policy where we'll participate at a certain level, and then if parents want to add to that, they're welcome to do that. But all in all, that equipment becomes ours, okay? Even if the parents buy it, it becomes ours to maintain. We'll, of course, update the surfacing and those kinds of things. And when it's time to replace, we're going to take it out when it's not safe for the kids, and we're going to continue to ask our parents to partner with us when they can and how they can financially and through volunteer efforts with installation and all those kinds of things. So we've kind of written this into a basic policy, and we're just trying to roll that out to you in this venue and just get your feedback at this point in time.
A couple of things I would add is that it addresses ADA, because there are
It
some
does.
ADA needs. And
That's
the other
another
thing-
big issue.
The other thing it addresses, new elementary schools don't have a constituency to raise funds.
They don't have a PTO.
So we're providing a base amount of $100,000 for those new projects. And we did spend 120 at Alexander, as I recall, but we did some extra things. But that's the baseline. And so we've tried to identify that and describe what that is.
I'm sorry, I sometimes need things to be explained to me twice, and this might be one of those things, but can you tell me how this is different from what we were doing before? Is it change from?
Yeah, we honestly didn't have any type of comprehensive policy where we would provide play equipment or replacement equipment at any of our existing buildings. We did a lot in the way of surfacing and things like that.
So
but
do we do it on an ad hoc basis, or we just not do it at all?
We relied almost entirely
PTO.
upon parents, PTOs stepping up, fundraising the money to put a new piece of a play equipment out there, and the district really contributed very little to that effort. This is a huge philosophical change in direction for us, and I think it's the right thing to do. I spent a lot of years in Cedar Falls, as you know. Donna Thompson is the national playground guru for ADA accessibility. She drilled into my mind how important it is that ADA accessibility be available for all kids and all skill levels. And I think with us participating, it provides that equity across the board.
And I would tell you that when I'm into my fourth year, the first year I got here, there was no money spent on playgrounds, except we decided to help. By the second year, we helped with theirs.
Yep.
Right.
That's
And then
the time.
and it was 3 years ago we did that. And so then we built the Pebble life cycle, and we clearly defined a line for playgrounds and athletic fields, which wasn't done prior to that as well. So
Well, it
we made
sounds-
huge strides.
Sounds wonderful, but so I'm wondering, I mean, in the past, this money must have been used for something else then?
Mhm.
I mean, what's it coming out of then to go into playgrounds?
Pebble.
It's
I mean-
a reprioritization of our
Yeah, so what's
Pebble
moving down?
dollars, where we'll spend a little bit less in some of the other areas that we had been. Maybe we'll take a few dollars out of the furniture life cycle, maybe we'll take a few dollars out of building repair life cycle. All of those things contributed to building up for us to be able to do this.
I'll give you
And
my 2
increase.
cents. I think we've been doing life cycle for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think
At least
now
two, yep.
you're starting to get a base
Mhm.
of, we've had PEPAL well-funded, we have SAVE well-funded. So there's been new funding streams come on, right? And a very systemic approach that I think now you can add some of these things that maybe weren't.
But to answer your question, Pebble was probably used for more than construction projects, that we didn't have the save dollars for.
Mhm.
And over time, we've been able to prioritize.
I mean, I guess my only question is, it sounds great, is there a counter argument to doing it?
Well, one of the things, I shared with you when I did the budget presentation is that our property tax has just been very, very solid in its growth at about 4 or 4.5% over a 10-year period of time. And PEPAL is a fixed levy. And so every year, when we fix that levy, we actually receive more funding. And so we're able to take some of that additional funding and create some of these additional life cycle things that we need in here. So.
And maybe another thing, Chris, for you to think about, because you haven't seen it because it hasn't been part of your tenure on the board, is we used to have some pretty wild fluctuations in where we spent money. Because if you think of all the buckets that we spend money in PEPAL, without the life cycle smooths it out. So we're going to spend this much in here and this much in here. We used to vary wildly. One year we spend a lot in this and nothing in this, and the next year it's the other way around.
Is that just because it was kind of more ad hoc and not planned?
It was totally ad hoc.
Definitely ad
It
hoc.
was what's a
It's not
priority
systemic
today,
whatsoever.
as opposed to looking ahead to what's a priority, and doing things like saying, how often should we be replacing desks and lunch tables, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by removing the emergency nature of funding on an ad hoc basis, it makes it easier to plan for something like this, because if you say, like Craig just did. We're gonna take a few dollars out of lunch tables to help
Roofs
pay
and
for
tuck
playgrounds.
pointing and-
We can figure out how to do that because we've got a long-term plan for it. When you're doing it on an ad hoc basis, you can't make a systemic plan like this. So really, putting the life cycle plans in place has allowed us to add this one to it.
I just want you guys to take credit for the systemic approach, because I just think, once you get the base under control, you can expand into other things, and that's kind of what you're doing. Now, again, we've brought on funding streams that help make that happen. But
Absolutely.
And I appreciate, because our playground programs were inherently unjust.
Mhm.
Unequal.
Before, and I appreciate all the work of going through and prioritizing them and everything that way. That's not a small feat at all. And having been at an elementary school where we had to raise $50,000, and it wasn't a very, it wasn't, we've got some elementaries that can raise $100,000
Right.
every year for playground equipment, and it's no problem.
And some that'll
then
never
others
raise that much.
Struggle at it, and I know at Hoover, when we went from the timber town to a new plastic structure and a health contingent of that, it was substantial, and at that time it was only $50,000, and it was a huge fundraising thing. One thing that I had, one thing I'd even thought of too, I talked with some PTOs, is possibly a structure where in the fundraising, a certain percentage of it would go to a pot that then would kind of be distributed to elementaries or PTOs or DPOs that have trouble raising funds. And that type of a model, but, doing it this way with Pebble is very useful.
Right, and that all sounds great. I didn't, you said, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, I guess this is a funny question, but I mean, what happens to the money that the PTO would have raised now? They're just not gonna raise it? Just somewhere we can capture that money anyway.
I would presume they will raise it for other things.
Exactly, they could put it toward technology, they could
Well,
put it
yeah.
toward books, they could put it toward any number of things.
Field
To a certain
trips.
extent.
Or additional
it-
playgrounds.
Well, that's right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Field trips is one.
Sure, exactly.
So I mean, there's so much
Well-
things to some kind of sharing.
Well, and that's the thing too, and that's a good one you bring up, field trips, because we heard that over at Kirkwood, when we were over there at that one, is that, they have trouble raising money, and I think they have one field trip a year.
Right.
And so, absolutely, I think.
We'd rather have them spending the money on field trips and playground equipment.
Sure. And, I think at some point in time, there should be a dialogue, I don't know if it's with the foundation or also with the DPOs, to see about some type of a sharing that, would be.
When some of that happens with like School of the Wild, the foundation helps schools that can't pay for.
And it's a sliding scale, is the way
Yeah.
they do that with School of the Wild.
But how about this? How about we finish strong on this agenda? And we decide if we want to bring that back as a future item. Any other questions on that, or any closing?
Well, again, just thanks to Ben and his crew for going through
Yeah.
and doing all the legwork here. That's pretty, that's a lot of work, and they wrapped all this together into a nice, neat package for us, and I think we can carry this out.
It's exciting.
So the next steps for me would be to communicate this to our administration, our admin team, and then just kind of put this into play. So with your feedback, that's the direction we'll go.
And then the board would see it in the broader life cycle.
Well, it'll be on the
It'll come in
Pebble
with
life
the-
cycle
Right.
when you approve that each year, and that'll be a part of it.
But what we're doing tonight, it's not on there.
No, it's, there's a category on Pebble life cycle for
For
playgrounds.
well, it's in there with athletic fields and everything,
Yes.
so this is plugged into that.
Mhm.
It's just a line item.
Yep.
Okay,
It's just a
and
line.
just one quick one on there too, there is, I think ADA accessibility is an individual area, so if those funds would be for building ADA accessibility, and if we're doing ADA on a playground, it would come out of that other
Playground.
bucket?
There is a line item in Pebble Life Cycle for ADA.
Right, I saw that, and so I just was curious if that would also go into that. Great.
All right, finishing strong. Next item for ready. Is there a 1-minute update on solar? It's all good?
Sorry.
Sounds good, yeah.
It's all good? It's on track?
Yeah, I have not moved very quickly on solar for a variety of reasons. One, the board seems to be pretty well working through a facilities plan that really doesn't include solar being like retrofitted into a school building. So my direction had been looking at a demonstration project.
Right.
I mentioned the last one, possibility of something at Liberty in the bus office that Dwayne brought to me in phase 2 that could be a solar project there. I've done some investigation with other, I've talked to one solar energy company. He made a very good point. He said, and I think we're right on target with that. He said, before you go solar, make sure that you've taken care of all your energy efficiency. Because it doesn't help just to put solar in and still be having those dollars go into inefficient energy. I think we've done a pretty good job on that. I've also talked to the superintendents, or they've all left, except in Morning Sun, which has some, it's an elementary district. They tuition all their high schoolers out, but they have solar at their elementary. I've talked to the new superintendent at Waco that has some, and Decorah is looking at something. And all three have said, yes, it works well. Some have said, but we don't know if we're going to do any more on this or not. And I've given that report to Steve. I'm just thinking that unless I hear differently from this group or the board, I know there are some community members that want us to move quicker on projects and do an RFP for solar in one of the buildings, if that's the direction the board wants to take. Certainly we could, with Dwayne's help, begin looking at that. But I haven't seen that direction from this committee or from Superintendent Murray at this point.
Not where I've always been. I like to get to a demonstration project, but is there anything you need from us to keep moving down the demonstration project route?
That one I can continue to work on.
Yeah.
Great. And give you, here's what I'm finding out from other districts. Here's what I'm finding out. You know, we got into that issue of power purchase agreements.
Well, how about this? Maybe next time we can spend more time on solar, since this is the 1 minute
That'd be
update.
good.
Agenda setting, we'll put solar on again.
Sure.
I mean, topics normally come up over the 2 months
yeah.
too, so we don't need to,
Right.
they generate
So we have another
themselves.
meeting when?
We always, it'd be May, right? Or
Yeah.
March,
Every other one.
second meeting in May.
Could we put on there as well a discussion on, like, what we're doing with our old temporaries, like the bleachers at City High, that kind of community asset, you know, how do we take care of our old assets when we phase them out, that type of thing?
Obsolete or whatever assets.
Right.
Recycling or whatever.
Right, repurpose, recycle.
We'll figure out what to
reuse,
call that.
That type of thing.
I'd like to get, I'm sure I won't wait 2 months, but a review and an updating of what it would cost, what it would cost to keep Hoover open operationally. How much would be saved by closing? How much of the cost of currently operating it would disappear if we closed it? Broken down so that we could really look at it. With the special ed piece kind of separated out, because that's got to be someplace no matter what happens with Hoover. And the second part of that I'd like to see is how much does it still need if it were to be kept open in terms of facilities updating? Does that sound like an agenda item?
Sure.
I mean, I think the topic is going to come up during the redistricting discussion and beyond. I'd rather have the information sooner than 2 months from now, but I'd like to at least put it on the agenda.
The building part's not that difficult, because we did a needs
I
assessment. of
think
all
we've got
buildings.
that, no
Yeah.
problem, right?
Well,
We've done the-
feel free to give me that information sooner if you want, but it'd
Well,
be nice to have it reviewed in some more formal way.
I do look at the staffing rows.
I have that information.
All right, other topics? Solar, use of obsolete assets, or we'll call it something, cost of Hoover / we can do all schools. And then
Okay, but I
capital.
do want Hoover.
No, I get you.
We've seen some average figures. To me, they're never quite as helpful. I'd like
No,
to
I'm
see
with
that.
you.
Yeah.
If we're looking at Hoover, you might as well look at them all.
Yep.
Same with the capital, we can pull out the.
Yep.
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.